Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of TFG Radio. As you can see and hear tonight, we have myself, Adam, fresh from my trip, my 6-hour, 12-hour round trip drive to the Bay Area. Danny, as almost always.
Hey.
Tom. Unfortunately, we do not have John, which means Tom, I believe, is pulling ahead now.
Yeah,
by a lot.
That's right.
But John has like these things called responsibilities, so he couldn't make it.
All I'm hearing is that this is John's fault.
I didn't say it wasn't. I just said it's his responsibilities. So, pretty busy couple weeks since we've been gone. Like I just mentioned, I'm back from BAO. I was there with Keith, who helps out a lot with the judging. 6 games over the weekend. It was at the Crown Plaza Hotel in the Bay Area. It was actually a link of like 3 hotels that they did for KublaCon. Unfortunately, it was not connected to the main event, so I couldn't.
Boo.
So one of the nice things about doing it with a convention, like at LVO, Adepticon, and I was hoping KublaCon, is while you're doing it, you could sometimes like sneak away to go to look at the other games, to look at the dealer room. If they have a flea market, you can check out the flea market. Things like that, which is why I like going. But it was in a different hotel, so we couldn't go. More importantly, because I know Keith and I were looking forward to it. But when we got there, we were on our own essentially. So in our own hotel. So it was fine.
Before we get into it, how was the food review? As always?
Moving on.
Oh, okay. Good, huh?
There was only one restaurant, understaffed, and they ran out of French fries over the course of the weekend. So I had my hamburger with a salad.
The horrors that you have endured.
Which is fine, but it was very good.
The 1,000-yard stare that Adam came back with.
It was. I mean,
how much of the therapy bill is frontline gonna handle?
Compared to all the other venues, it's probably it's better than SoCal Open, because SoCal Open is fair food, hot dogs and hamburgers.
Yeah. But
compared to the other like hotels, motels, or whatever that we were attached with, it's down there. The hotel was short staffed. They were not prepared for, even though we only had about maybe 200 people, because we had about 150, a little over 150 for 40K, and then we had 25, I think it was, for Old World.
I mean, that's not bad.
And they still had like a large waiting list for Old World, apparently.
Oh, wow.
So for 40K, it was, so the better food was the food we got DoorDashed in, as opposed to the food at the actual hotel. So, but we had, I believe it was 167 tickets sold, 158 registered. That means they used the code that BCP gave them, or that BCP gave the players, and then there were 154 that actually ended up playing.
Okay, so nice and cozy these days.
If you look at the YouTube shorts that I posted for day 1 and day 2, cozy is one way of putting it.
Oh no.
It was very if you went to the BAO, I don't think you were there, Danny. Tom, I think, may have been there. Remember the BAO they had at Game Castle, where they tried to squeeze 200 people into the store?
It was pretty tight. Yeah.
And it was like 100 degrees, and they didn't have a fan and no air conditioning.
I remember that specifically because somebody was wearing a thong the whole time.
Well,
probably Dayton. I think he still played 40K back then.
Well, he didn't go to B. I don't know. But in any case, it was that packed. It was literally butts to nuts.
sucks.
A zipper.
I'm watching the short right now, and my God.
Thanks for the views, Tom.
I mean, you didn't need me. Looked like we jumped on the shorts trend pretty effectively for our channel.
Yeah, so it was pretty crowded, especially when you had to walk through. I mean, I'm not the biggest guy, but I'm also not the slimmest guy. So it was still a challenge to like weave in between a lot of the rows. So, for those that know, we did have the new layouts for the weekend and for the mats. Their new we just used the GW layouts for the Karst Outpost, which is essentially the GW set, and we used the Imperial Outpost and the Sisters Outpost and the Chaos, the Corrupted terrain sets, and just created maps for them. So what we ended up doing, and this was actually a suggestion by Keith, we had the players set up the terrain for the first round, and then we instructed them at the end when they were done with their game to set up the terrain for the next round. Because if you look at the player pack, at least for the frontline terrain, each mission has a different layout. And it seemed to work out fairly well. We were watching people that were finished with their game, but they were still measuring the terrain for the next game. So I think for the most part, I think it was received really well. I know Keith and I were worried that the players wouldn't get it.
It feels like the 40K equivalent of, all right, now pass your quiz to the right, and we're all going to grade each other's papers.
Yeah, basically. And Keith and I were actually worried, because we know gamers don't like to read, that they wouldn't be able to do it, but they were able to do it just fine.
Or can.
But they were able to do it. There were really no issues. A few questions cropped up, but we didn't get too many. Most of the questions were about the GW layout because there's no measurements. But apparently on the Tabletop Battles app, the measurements are there.
Oh, that's nice.
And then Keith gave the secret to how to set up the GW table without using a ruler. But you have to be at the event. I'm not going to tell you how because I want Keith the intro.
Oh, trade secrets here. Look at that.
I mean, he's probably already in trouble because I just said it right now. So, but so that seemed to go okay. There wasn't really any major issues. We didn't have
What was the best call.
What
was like the best question you got where you're like, oh, that's actually a good one?
Okay, I do have that. So basically, if Calgar with his bodyguard is in a unit, can you assign the wound to the bodyguard instead of to Calgar's bodyguard instead of the bodyguard unit? I'll tell you the actual answer afterwards, after these messages. I'll let you guess, Danny. You too, Tom. No cheating.
I know this.
No cheating, Danny. I see you looking at your phone.
I'm looking up the rules. I don't remember the rules exactly. To my recollection, because something similar came up at the last LVO, but I don't think he was actually in a squad. But I think you have to assign it to the regular chump man unit they're attached to before you could go to the bodyguard.
Are you talking about precision?
No, this is just regular. Like they just get shot in general, and he says, "Okay, I'll put the wound on the Vitrix guard instead of the, let's say they're with aggressors, instead of the aggressors."
Yeah, I'm with Danny because I think if memory serves, Calgar and his unit are a unit of characters, so they have the character keyword, which means you wouldn't naturally wait.
Adam looks disappointed in both of us.
I am.
No, because
although I can see the gears turning in Tom's head because Tom plays Ultramarines on occasion.
Right.
Well, I was trying to look up the rule.
Yeah.
Danny can do that while Tom stalls.
So here's the thing: you can do that, but here's the problem if you do that. That means that any further wounds that the unit takes have to then be carried and continued on until the other bodyguard and Calgar are dead. That's my thought.
Okay, you want to know the answer?
Definitely doesn't work. Yes, please.
The answer is you can. The reason is if you look at their keywords, the two bodyguards, the two victors card do not have the character keyword.
So,
So in your scenario, Tom, if you give it to the bodyguard models, you kill him off. You go until you kill him off, but it doesn't carry over to Calgar because he is actually a character. He actually has the character keyword. And if you look in the app, it actually says Calgar has character keyword, and then bodyguard does not say it has a character keyword.
Well, that's really good because then that means if you stick him with a big old unit of aggressors, right, and you use Lazarus to deep strike him, then all of a sudden you've got this deep striking unit of like really hard to shift folk, and you've got two freaking bodyguards that you could peel off before you have to start taking away aggressors.
Yes, and I think that was the purpose of that strategy. The other question that came up with that same setup was if you can assign
Ventress, not Lazarus. Sorry, I have to correct myself before somebody does on the internet. It's Uriel Ventress that can do that, not Lazarus. Lazarus is a Dark Angel.
Okay. With Celestine and her Gemini, and it applies to Calgar also, and Dark Commune for Chaos, because it's a group of models. And the Dark Commune has the same thing. Every other model do not have the character keyword. Only the main guy, which I forget what his name, the Demagogue.
Dark Apostle?
Yeah, or whatever he is. He has the one model has the character keyword. The rest of them do not. And then with Celestine, the question was asked: can you give if they're by themselves? So it's just Celestine and the Gemini. They're not attached to any bodyguard. Can you put the wound on the character?
No,
and not the Gemini.
No,
but not the Gemini. They said you can.
Really? No.
Yeah.
I thought literally in the rules it says like you cannot assign.
Yeah, but see, the Gemini are not a bodyguard unit. They're just part of the character unit.
Not to mention which it's like a unit of 2.
It's a unit of 3, but only one of them has the character keyword.
Right.
But the two Gemini are not. They're not bodyguard. They're not a bodyguard unit.
But the way I had read, and again, I just got to get to.
Right, the character rule is you can't assign a wound to a character until everybody in the bodyguard unit is gone.
Oh, and that would explain why. So then that means the same thing would happen with
Calgar, the ritual. Yeah. If they're running around by themselves, if I wanted to, I can get. But that also means you have to take all the wounds on the character.
Right.
So
which I don't know why you would. Calgar's case, definitely not.
It could. I can see it. I can see it happening late game, especially if your character has a better save, more wounds, obviously. So end game, it might matter if you only have those extra models on the objective or something like that.
Well, right, and also if you lose the character as opposed to Gemini, you're less likely to fail a battle shock test.
Yes.
You still have to take one.
Yeah, because like Celestine has like twice as many or 3 times as many wounds as a Gemini.
Right, and if she gets peeled off, then that's only 30% losses. You're not taking a battle shock test.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So just that.
This
so
is only for if you have a bodyguard unit, which is only established during the declared battle formation step.
Yeah. There you go.
So.
Wow. Wow.
Fun.
We had to clarify the fight when you get shot rule that goes with the Death Company, Hellbrute, and the Murder Fang. Because people were asking if you get to pile in as if it was a fight phase if you're not in engagement range. So we had to clarify that. We had a bit of miscommunication with it.
The answer is no, you can't, right?
You can. You still have to be eligible to fight.
Right, because I know that the Ultramar banner gets around that by saying they can shoot or attack once with whatever they're equipped with if they do the 4-up and make it.
Right.
But you can't. It doesn't mean you can pile in. It just means you can shoot or fight.
Well, this one was these say you can fight as if it was a fight phase or shoot as if it was a shooting phase. When there's an attack against you.
The Ultramar one is when they die.
Oh, okay.
It's the same concept. Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, well, that's a little different. So they have to actually survive. So that was that. A couple questions on the terrain. Nothing too like. It was like a bunch of nuanced questions. A couple questions about cover, because some people were still mistaking the cover rules from 9th edition for the cover rules for 10th. So 9th, you just had to be in the cover to get the cover save, right? 10th, you have to actually not be a part of the model cannot be visible, and then you get a cover save. So depending how, especially on the GW terrain, depending how the buildings are laid out on the little plexiglass, if you park a vehicle a certain way, you may not get you can get cover from one direction, but not get cover from another direction, because you can see the complete model, and in the other direction you can't see the whole thing. So things like that, nothing too crazy. As always, there is the occasional of like players like butting heads about how something should be ruled or whatever. So, but nothing to write home about. Let's put it that way. Nothing to write Reddit about. So we went through all 6 rounds. Again, it was fairly, and I don't know if I mentioned it in Rocky Mountain, but there's a new I don't want to call it a feature, but there's a new thing with BCP, because as always, you get the people that drop when after the pairings are put up. So the new thing with the app or with the program is that before remember Danny, we used to have to find the people and who they're paired against and write down and try to remember who they were paired with.
Yep.
And then drop them. Well, now BCP does that for you.
Oh, that's nice.
So if someone drops,
life feature.
Yeah. So when someone drops, after a minute or two, they'll disappear from the pairings. So it'll show someone with no pairings, with no partner.
And then you can just do a quick swap.
Yes.
Nice,
Unfortunately, in the last round, someone that was like, I think they were like 3-2, got a free buy because their opponent dropped. And that's what the funny thing about that is. I did the pairings like 5 minutes before start of round. So either they didn't like the pairing, even they didn't like the person, didn't like the army, or for whatever reason they decided to drop after I did the pairings. So I couldn't match that person with anybody because nobody else dropped. At the end of the day, I think we were at 140, like the low 140s. So we only had about 12
attrition.
Yeah, we only had like a 10% drop, which was the old average before COVID. Same with the start, with 160 whatever tickets sold and 154 at start. So it seems like we're back.
Tracks.
It seems like we're back to like the 10% drop off for the most part. The other thing, we did have two sets of players that missed day 1 because of car problem, but showed up on day 2, so they were able to play.
Well, that's good. At least they got to play some games.
Yeah.
That's sad though.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to bring up the.
Yeah, who were the top 3?
Yeah, that's on. Okay, so for best paint, in third place was third place in best paint. I can't remember now because I have the wrong screen open.
I like how you looked at us like that was our fault. Or what's on your screen?
I had the screen up for RMO because I was looking up something else for Rocky Mountain. But for best general, third place was Ruben Zhao with Blood Angels. If you don't know Dan, you know who he is, and you know Tommy. He has a White Scars army.
Yeah.
So he was playing Blood Scars.
Hey, whatever.
He came in third with basically Blood Angels.
Well, the Blood Angels are pretty good on the GW terrain. Like if you
Well,
you know you've got a lot of that big obscuring stuff.
Yeah,
and infantry a lot better.
and I think at this point on all, especially on our tables, on all the terrain, because so what we did, if we have the crates and the forests or craters, whatever you want to call them. So one of the things we did, because we can't just toss them and replace them with something else. So one of the things Leo did was that he put down that the crates and the woods or craters were infinitely high, like ruins, for purposes of LOS only. And if you look at the maps, a lot of them, especially a couple of the maps, they're around the center objective. So it makes it much denser than it looks. Because if you look at it, you're like, oh man, the whole center's open because it's just this crate and these woods or crater. And so by making them like ruins, it helped a lot to mitigate, which is why Blood Angels came in third, and Ruben was essentially undefeated. He just had 5 wins and 1 draw. So second place was the true undefeated, and that was Adam Dye with his Chaos Space Marines. For those that, especially those from Northern California, might recognize Adam's name. He usually comes up very often in the standings. He usually goes like 4-1, 5-1, or like this weekend 6-0, and just came up short by coming in second. And in first place was Junior Flehy with his Votaan, Tom. Votaan.
Hey, good for Junior. Nice.
And I think both Adam and because Adam was playing the old Chaos Codex or Index, because the Codex came out just that day or just that weekend, so it wasn't out yet or wasn't available for BAO. And I don't recall, can't remember off the top of my head, but both of them, obviously Votan's more of a shooty army. Adam's army, I believe, was a mix of both, but it does show. And if you look at the top rankings for the day, it's a mix of armies. I think the only repeat was Orcs, and that was like a 1 loss, two armies with 1 loss. But it was a mix of different armies and different types of armies, whether it was Tau, World Eaters, Votan, Shoot Marines. It was just a wide variety of armies in those top spots, at least with X1, so Necrons. Didn't hear too many complaints about the terrain, so as far as I know, there's no changes for ACO. So that was for Best General. Best Paint was Brian Leva with Eldari, Matthew Tweedle with Tau, and Andrew Whitehead with Eldari. So, and again, it was a good mix of painters, especially with the Paragon and for Paragon, and for those that don't know, it's Paragon is your where you land in the standings with your paint combined with your paint score, and as long as you don't get a yellow or red card during the course of the event. Normally, I don't count list infractions. It has to be at the event where you get the yellow or red, depending what's going on. So. And that was third place with Marshall Peterson, who I think came in second place for Paragon at RMO. And then Jason Ryder for his Chaos Space Marines. And I believe he was, I think he was third for RMO for paint. And then in first place was Adrian Phillips of Tabletop Titans. And he had Orcs. So Orcs always fare well. In the paint category, and combined when you have a good player with Paragon. So those are the winners, along with everyone else that make friends along the way.
The real grimdark is the friends you make along the way, as I've been saying for years.
So it was a lot. It was, as always, it was a lot of fun being there. It was. Again, I drove 6 hours get there, 6 hours get back. It was weird because I can actually see bodies of water as I was driving, since the last time I drove to BAO was when we were still in a drought.
Oh, yeah.
So seeing the reservoir and the lakes, like, almost of capacity.
What the hell's all this green stuff?
What's all this blue stuff? Yeah, what's all this green stuff on the on the hills,
I know, right?
going through Gilroy and smelling all the garlic. It was a lot. I liked it. I enjoyed it. On the way back, it was pretty nice. I left at like 5 a.m. to come back to beat the traffic.
How did other game types do at that event? Was there a lot of presence in, like, say, Kill Team or?
I don't know, because we didn't do any of that.
Oh, you didn't do any of that for
No,
BO?
we were so the space was there was so little space we could only do 40K and Old World, and Old World only because the TO for Old World was like really pushing for it, so we decided to give it a try, and they got 25 people I think, and they still had a big waiting list apparently, and the TO had a giant like blanket size map of the Old World.
Amazing.
It was nice.
I
Should have taken a picture of it.
was gonna say that I would absolutely gun for one of those.
It looked like a blanket. I'm pretty sure it was a blanket. Because didn't they make a blanket for the Old World? I think that's what it was.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious.
But he had it up like a tapestry.
Right. Wasn't there like offsite? Wasn't there like an FLG AOS tournament like GT? I think it was like Game Castle, but it was like part of BAO, but not. I don't know. Yeah.
No, it wasn't. If it was part of BAO, they would have sold tickets for it.
Okay, fair enough.
It was probably a bunch of guys that like, we'll do our AOS tournament at Game Castle.
Probably.
Out of spite. So.
We'll do our own BAO.
Yeah.
The Stigmarines. Blackjack.
With blackjack and warp dust.
You know what?
So, yeah.
Forget the AOS.
So yeah, so it was fun. I mean, it's the oldest active tournament in California. It predates Hammer Wrath by I think 2 years. No, older than that, like 4, I think. John would know.
BAO's been going for a long time.
It was 2013.
I mean, it was one of the first major ones I ever went to, and that was.
It predates ITC. I know that much.
Yeah, BAO's like essentially the birth of FLG.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah, that's the whole reason they have FLG is because of BAO.
Yeah.
So it was small compared to some of the other events. It's more of a legacy event at this point. I mean, they get around the same number every year, which was about 150, 160. So, I mean, even before when you had it in Game Castle, that one time we went past that to like 200, like I just said, it was horrible.
That sounds like hell.
Because it was literally like a zipper. Everyone lined up. And I remember it being super hot. And remember they had the skylights. So you're like under a magnifying glass at certain tables. And it wasn't until day 2 that they brought in the giant fans to cool it off. So
I'm more thinking about how many air fresheners are needed.
In that regard, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't that bad considering it was because it was still a hotel. It wasn't like a game store or the barn, So.
True. But I'm thinking like you've got a bunch of people. By the end of the day, it's gonna start to smell.
It actually wasn't like I said. It wasn't. No, it didn't smell like you would expect. It was cold. It was cold as fuck because it's a Bay Area and just off the ocean. It was colder. I felt like it was colder than when I was at Denver, and that was just after a snowstorm.
Jesus.
I'll just say I could cut diamond on Saturday. Sunday was a little warmer, but I think because it wasn't overcast like it was on Saturday. Saturday was overcast and windy. So, but it was fun. During the course of the weekend, I don't know if you saw it, Danny, but so one of the other guys that help us run or helps us judge LVO, Jorge, had sent me asked a question in the group, one of our group chats about, and the question was, and I'll ask you guys, if you rotate a turret during the charge phase, does that count as charging? to show you the video. I have to. I want to put it on our YouTube Shorts, but I have to get permission from Jorge to post it. Basically, the tank is basically, can you charge? Does it count as charging if the unit I want to charge is over here? If I rotate my turret so I can become in engagement range with my turret, not the hull, does it count as charging? If I rolled high enough with my 2d6. I like your reaction, Tom.
Somewhere John just got a kidney stone.
I mean, the rules don't actually stipulate that, models with articulation cannot use it, right? Like, there's nothing like, hey, your models are static, but
right,
I feel like that's
okay. So here's what it's essentially no. One.
Yeah, well, no, it should be no, but I'm
one
just
because it's
out,
dick.
like the one.
Yeah, there's dick move.
That's modeling. I mean, it's modeling for advantage too. Of like, oh, I've magnetized this, or I've done this, or
yes,
however,
basically.
Of like, well,
the other thing is, I believe you because pivoting and moving your turret does count for movement, but only in the movement phase. So if you want to argue it, you would argue that that the movement counts, but only in the movement phase. But we're in the charge phase. We're not in the movement phase, so you can't do it. And plus, don't be a jerk.
Yeah, I mean, I get this at almost every LVO where someone's like, hey, I have my, my whatever thing, the turret moves. Can I move it, in the shooting phase? It's like, can my opponent move in the shooting phase, shoot with it, and then move it back after shooting? So he's hiding behind, this obscuring piece of terrain. And,
right.
always like, as like, no. And they're like, well, where in the rules does it say? It's like, that's just modeling for advantage, dude. So no, we're just unsportsmanlike conduct. Let's just leave it at that.
I mean,
I think actually 99% of people who ask that question are just genuinely like, can I do this?
Yeah, they just
and are not like actually being like jerks
right
about it.
Yeah. Which is why I usually don't card. I told Jorge to give him a yellow card because he made me mad all the way from California. So
that's fair.
I'll see if I can get permission from Jorge to put it up, but we'll see. I don't know.
There was one LVO where didn't a guy disassemble?
Yes, John tells that story.
Yeah,
he took his riptide apart at the waist so he could fit it under the second floor of a building.
Right. Yeah.
Was it riptide? I think it was a riptide. I don't think it was a knight. I think it was a riptide.
Yeah, it was something Tau. I know that.
Yeah, it was riptide. We can't trust those Tau players. You should know that by now.
I know.
Yeah.
So again, it was a enjoyable event. Congrats to Junior for winning the golden ticket, and congrats to Adrian for winning a golden ticket, because this year apparently we're giving out golden tickets going forward to the overall, which is the Paragon winner, and the best general for the championships at GW. At least FLG is. Not every event is. So. In other news, we had I mentioned this. So for those that don't know, I did a video with my quick reaction to the reveals when they had the reveals last week. My opinion on the reactions, if you didn't listen to it, was I don't mind the reactions. It's just that I feel like we're getting to a point where it's oversaturation of the previews, because you now have a preview like every other month, any of the big events, and then any GW event now, or any big event in Europe. So like London GT, which I believe is in September, I'm not mistaken. LVO, Adepticon, you'll have it at Nova, you had it at the Dallas Open, you're going to have it at Tacoma, you're going to have it at Tampa. So that's already 6, 7?
It's a lot. I mean, the previews, used to be rarefied and oh shit, here it is.
Yeah,
now it's
and this last one, in my opinion, the last one was very anemic. We talked a little bit about the AOS one, where it didn't seem like it was like a commercial break in between them talking about the design of 4.0 for Sigmar.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was definitely. It's just like, wait, is this about the previews or is this about the rules design team getting to wax poetic in front of an audience, right? And like, why like the preview used to be about here's the cool thing, and then
Right.
you'd get the design and cool background stuff at your own pace with a whole follow-up article on that. And I like that because it was like, okay, I can actually read it. You can ask a lot of questions. I don't have to go dig for a video or find a clip. It's like there's the article. I can read what the rules or design team wrote. That's how I prefer to ingest that information.
Danny, I forgot if I asked you how you felt. Did you like the preview for the AOS since you play?
I mean, I did like hearing the rules guys talking about the rules and the changes. I found some of what they were saying interesting. I really just like getting to see the full box content and see like the new Skaven, and
Right.
see the full like list, because you actually get like you get 40 clan rats in the starter box. Like that's a lot of clan rats. Um,
Yeah.
like that's actually pretty cool, especially because they're a refresh, right? Like
Yeah.
they're a redo. So and if you talk to a dedicated Skaven player, they've got like 100, 120 of those bad boys. So
Yeah.
it's but being able to pick up like two box halves to mostly replace your older models is not too shabby at all. The spearhead wrestling thing they did, I
Oh
turned
yeah.
off in about 5 minutes just because like the production, like actually how they shot it. It's not like the guys I think were great and charming, but the commentators that they have are just don't know how to commentate a game, quite honestly, because like when you're commentating a game, it's not just about hyping up the action, it's about explaining what's going on to people who don't know,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and being entertaining while you're doing it. And it's a very, very hard thing to do. I mean, there's I think honestly very few good commentators, like people who are legitimately well knowledgeable in the game and actually interesting to listen to, and can riff and joke, while also being informative. Like
Right.
I said, I think there's very, very few people who can actually do that really well. In AOS, really, the one I think of the most is Rob from The Honest Wargamer. He's
Mm-hmm.
really good at that. But like just the camera angles were weird. It was hard to see what was going on. They were moving relatively quickly. There wasn't like explaining what was happening. It's just the lighting was bad, right? Like it
Yeah.
was just it was not, I think, an enjoyable experience. And and I mean, really, like I hate to say it because like GW is a multi-million-dollar company, but like it's very clear, at least in that instance. I don't know, maybe if they had some kind of limitations in the space or whatever, but it felt very like, hey, we got the intern to do this, right? Like it's just
Yeah.
there wasn't a sense of professionalism.
I tuned in like very briefly. Well, I tuned in like right in the beginning. It was very dim. It felt very mid 2010s streaming. When everyone remember when at the point where I mean everyone was, even we tried at one
Yeah,
point. Everyone's trying to figure out
stream games.
how to
Yeah.
do it, and everyone had a different setup, and having a layout overlay or whatever wasn't really a thing yet. It felt very early, streaming, game streaming days,
Right.
like
Like
a
I
step
said, it
backwards.
felt.
Because when GW used to stream the 40K events at LVO, they had cameras that zoomed in, zoomed out. They had all this really cool stuff that I don't know if they have anymore. Or maybe Joe from Wormgaze Live, maybe he bought all their equipment. I don't know, because Joe has all the fancy stuff now, and GW seems like is back to like using like my webcam.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And it's unfortunate too because from what I've seen of Spearhead and what I've been able to glean from looking at different people's takes on it, and
Mm-hmm.
what we could parse out from the rules, like Spearhead actually looks like a pretty fun game that's also would be inherently more streamable, because I could really see two well versed players being able to finish a game in like 20 minutes,
Right.
right? And and it's dynamic. Things happen. Such a small board, you're kind of forced into conflict immediately, right? Like I think it's actually probably a better product for streaming than AOS or 40K, right? The same way Kill Team is generally a better product for streaming. But they get, and it's kind of sad that like, oh, hey, here's this new form, and like they don't really give it that proper of an outing.
Right.
Just really felt like they, again, a higher up was just like, hey, intern, you do some posts for us, like here, let's, you're running this now, and it's like, but
yeah, now I get it.
It's like
The reason I bring it up is not to harp on how bad that stream was. But it was, but only because, and in regards to the reveals, is they had another reveal this past week, and that was mainly for all the video games, and it was just video game trailers. And I know Tom is all excited about. What are you excited about?
Mechanicus
Some Necron thing.
Mechanicus 2.
Yeah, that's what
we'll
it
get
is.
to that. We'll get to that.
Well, you can talk about it now. I don't care.
Well, it sounded like I'm working on interrupting, right? It sounded like you had a shield going. You did a solid call out to me. I answered, and I felt like you were going to finish your thought.
Well, apparently one of us is excited about Mechanicus 2. We can talk about that now because there's one other thing we want to tackle about that two of us are excited about. Everyone can guess which two. But Tom, why are you excited? I never played Mechanicus.
So Mechanicus, the way it worked was you were on an Arc Mechanicus. You basically needed supplies, so you stopped by this planet to scrounge for them. And then lo and behold, it's a Necron Tomb world. And so you're trying to stop it from rising before it's too late. And the way it works is you go into the planet, you go through these rooms, there's these events that are beneficial or not beneficial based on your choices. It feels very much like a click paper RPG from back in the day. And then when you get to these encounters, that's where it turns into turn-based combat. For those of you who have ever played XCOM or Midnight Marvel Suns, where you have different pieces that you can move, they have action points, you can use abilities, you can refresh action points. All this to say, that game, from a visual, design, gameplay, music, Foley, like every category you could look at it, in my opinion and the opinion of others, was perfect. That game was technically a perfect game. Like there was almost no thing you could point to where it was like, that kind of sucks about the game, but the rest of it's great. Like every element of that game was perfect. You may not like that game style, that's fine, but the game was perfect. And I especially loved it for the music. Guillaume David, or if I'm saying his name correctly, he's a French composer. He does video game compositions, and he made some baller music for that game to the point where that music in and of itself was a gateway drug to 40K for some people because they knew it came from a 40K game. Flash forward to now, they're making Mechanicus 2, same studio. You already know it's the same
composer.
You heard it, like you could hear it right away. It was new music. It was definitely him and his style, and from the couple snapshots we have, it looks like it's same concept of you have an overmap where you make choices and things happen, and then you have the battle map where you have your squad-based combat. And based on some of the visuals also, it looks like there's going to be new Mechanicus unit types, as well as they've upgraded the game to now have the new Necron models that have come out since 9th and 10th edition have started. Because Mechanicus 1 started right before the Necron reveal, so they didn't have any of those new model assets in the game. So I'm excited. If the studio does exactly what they did and they took their time and they weren't pressured, it's going to be a knockout in my opinion.
Well, I'm happy you're happy, Tom.
Thank you. That's all I want.
I'm not going to play it.
That's a rare comment from you. You don't have to. I'll just tell you how good it is.
More importantly, they talked more about Space Marine 2 and talked about multiplayer, and you can play as Chaos. Two of us are excited about that. One of us is not, because you cannot play as Tyranids. So you could probably...
Look, it's a fucking tragedy. It's all I'm just saying. It's a goddamn fucking tragedy. Because, you obviously, you're not, I'd be cool if you could play as like a squad of 20 Gaunts or something, and just send waves. But let's play as a Tyranid warrior. Like, come on. Or, again... You have all the models. How hard is it to have a horde mode where you're the Tyranid warrior and you're just slaughtering guardsmen? Like I'm just saying it's
Easily
what hurts the
doable.
most is the disrespect. It's the disrespect that hurts the most.
And meanwhile, to your point, there is pretense, or precedence, I should say, for allowing players to play as Tyranids, because you can if you're playing Space Hulk video games. If there are multiplayer Space Hulk video game elements where you could play as the Gene Stealer side.
Nice.
So they have precedence.
I'm gonna say it's in a
Tyranids
future DLC.
I think that
I mean, I
actually.
wouldn't doubt that, honestly.
I'm
That
looking
would be a
forward to
hell
it.
of a DLC.
But it's
I mean, I'm super looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely, but I
3-on-3, like what's the other game?
Gears.
Huh?
Like Gears?
Yeah, like Gears, because Gears is 3-on-3, or three-man squads, isn't it? I can't remember.
Some forms were.
There's
I
some
think it was-
tapping. I don't know who the tapping is.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
That's me with the pen.
No, yeah, Gears I think was 3-on-3. Maybe one of the Gears later games was 4-on-4.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, and also there were also other game modes.
Yeah, they
Gears
had the one
where
where you fought
there were
the.
Well, there were other ones where they had bigger multiplayer battles. So it was squad v squad, or it was big squad versus big squad.
Oh, okay.
I know that they had that.
So right now it's only make 6 players 3-on-3, and you can play as loyalists or chaos.
No, it's 6v6.
Oh, is it 6v6?
It's 6v6 for
Ooh.
PvP.
Nice.
You play Marines versus Chaos. There are different unit types, so Marines that have different special bespoke abilities and gear, as well as you can unlock heraldry, and stuff like that. And as far as and they also confirm too, there are no microtransactions, meaning that if you want to unlock heraldry, you just unlock. I mean, I don't know if they give it to you from out the gate. Or
Right.
If
You
unlock
have to unlock something.
Probably you have to play it to unlock, but yeah, so you have the ability to customize your Marines, and it's not a microtransaction thing, so it's not Fortnite or bullshit like that.
They put a release date yet? I wasn't paying attention.
September. I think it's September.
It's September. Yeah, I thought I said red December, but September sounds right too.
I should be fully done with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Oh my god, you still playing that?
I'm almost done.
Okay.
Dude, that game's like a Russian novel.
I've only done like 60 hours in it. Like
60 hours on a single player game is impressive.
I can't say anything.
Really. I'm sure the original. I mean, I was also a teenager when it came out, but when FF7 first came out, I mean, I put easily a couple hundred hours into that. I put at least 200 hours into Final Fantasy Tactics. I think I put like 100+ hours into like Disgaea when it first dropped. Like, again, for me, like a single player like meaty RPG should be between 60 and 80 hours of gameplay.
Yeah, I'm trying to see how many hours I put into like for example, Baldur's Gate through 2 playthroughs I put 160 hours. Rogue Trader in a single playthrough I put 88 hours into.
There you go. I'm not going to talk about how many hours I put in Fallout 76. So moving on. It is more than 1,000, so. But that's over 5 years, 5 years now.
It's still not as high as my highest, which is a good thing.
We also had we just recently saw the Jaegers. For those that don't know, those were the walking
bikers.
Walking bikers. Yeah, I wanted to say squats. Well, I'm not supposed to.
Henrik and Jaegers.
Yeah, so Tom still plays Votaan, so Tom, take it away. Look, 2 in a row for Tom. Oh my god.
Yeah, look at me, man. Look at this. So, yeah, the released as part of the kill team. I don't know how good their kill team rules are because I don't play kill team. I one day hopefully will. But at a first glance, I was like, they don't seem like they do very much until I realized that they have 2 key things. And talking with Danny, infiltrators and pragmatic hunters. So infiltrators, they're the only unit in all of Votaan to have that role, which means Votaan finally have that tool available to them. The second piece being with Pragmatic Hunters, once per turn, an enemy unit ends a normal, advance, or fallback move within 9 inches of this unit. If they're not engagement, then they can make a normal move up to d6, which basically means now you have the ability to push forward, right, with your infiltration, counter deploy. The enemy comes close, and you either retreat back, you push forward to give them more things to be distracted by, or you move block, right? If it's a fast-moving, army that wants to get in with you, which, as Votaan typically does, they like to kind of turtle up and move that turtle around slowly across the map, shooting and shooting and shooting, right? So it's great for that purpose.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we were talking about this. I think the Jaegers are actually something that can really help Votaan, just because it gives you, I mean, what any shooting army generally doesn't want to run into, which is a really fast, pin list, something that even if you can shoot your way out of it eventually, it just denies you the center of the board immediately, and you just can't take it back. And, the Jaeger are like the counter to that, because you deploy them up, and if things start moving forward, you advance forward into them to kind of, move block them, or how far they can go with their charges. Maybe now they can't get a first turn charge, or you're scrumming in the middle, and yes, they're going to take the middle, but it gives you an extra 9, 10, 12 inches of the center to actually move into and start shooting, doing your damage, and start being able to compete for objectives. Because, at the end of the day, a pin list needs to win the center turns 2 and 3 and 4 to really guarantee that they're going to win the game, right? They have to, especially if they go first, they have to win turns 2, 3, and 4 in the center. And with those guys, you might be able to make it to where they're only going to win 2 and 3, and you're going to win 3 and 4, or you're going to win 3, 4, 5, and therefore, unless secondaries really suck, you're going to win the game. So
here's another reason that I just connected to that I think helps tie things together. So, per the new rules for how Votaan work, enemy units get judgment tokens when they kill a Votaan unit. So that's another amazing utility. You're now having your Votaan units, by their death, giving out judgment tokens to enemy units that are not part of your main castle, right? That now that castle can take advantage of. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I think all the whatever they call them, the hunter guys, like the Jaegers and the bikers, because the bikers scout, so they're the only thing you really had that helps you take the center early.
Yep.
And now that you have a second thing there, it's like, cool, they hit the speed bump. Now there's some more judgment tokens out, so now the bikers can actually start doing a little bit of damage and helping peel stuff away. Maybe your rest of your castle burns down one thing that's camping one objective. All of a sudden, now you're taking an objective from them in the center, and again, really screwing the math on the pin list. And then against another shooting list, there's still. I mean, if you're in the center from the start of the game and your opponent lets you have that on turn 2,
that's good.
That's just free real estate, right? So, yeah. We all know the meme. But it is I actually really like them. They're one of those units that if you look at their stats are not great. They'll slaughter gargoyles or something, but guardsmen. They're not very good on the stat line, but it's definitely one of those you have to see the forest, you have to be able to see the forest from the trees, right? That they add such an important layer to list building that Votaan just never had. So if you're really a dedicated Votaan player, you should definitely have to. I mean, their only downside is you have to take them in squads of 10. So depending on their points, that can get real pricey real fast. But assuming they're appropriately costed for things with a 5+ save and just a bunch of shrink 4 shots, hopefully they're not too expensive, because then you can probably want to have 2 units, maybe the full 3, right? Because 30 bodies in the middle of the board is still 30 bodies in the middle of the board that are T5. That's not terrible. And then when you kill them, you get a judgment token, so now you're easier to get clap back. So
okay,
I think it's workable.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing about their stat line is they get to move 6, where a lot of foot boys move only 5. So that's helpful. And they actually have leadership 7, which is pretty good for a frontline unit.
I wouldn't know. Most of my stuff's leadership 5. So I expect to see at least 2 units in Tom's army if he can find the models.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll just take the copious number of boys that I've got and just designate some of them as Jaegers. I'll
Put a coat on
Get
them.
some cloaks. Just put some coats on them.
I'll put little ponchos on them.
Yeah.
That'll be my poncho Jaegers.
We also finally got the first FAQs for the Codex Custodes and Orcs. No one cares about the Custodes. Basically, change in the range for one of their enhancements, a change in the wording for one of their shoulder the mantle stratagem, and then a correction to the Valerian's abilities. That's basically.
Did it have a line on the top that said, "Sorry guys, they still suck because we're punishing you"?
Yeah, I don't think it really helped or hindered the army. I don't see anybody I haven't seen anybody online going out of the ways, how great these changes were. But I think these are more just little corrections. Update. It literally just says updates and errata. It's not even. It doesn't even answer any questions. I guess you got to play the army to have any questions about the army.
Yeah, the first one being why. What have you done to my boy?
Orcs. Orcs had a correction about the Gretchen ability because the Gretchen ability, the way it read, people were confusing and thinking that you had to roll a 4+ in order for them to be able to move, which is not the case. The 4+ is to be able to get a CP. So they fixed that. They fixed the transport section that includes Gazgul for the battle wagon and the hunter rig and the Stampa. Because there was questions with the Gazgul in does him and his little Makari, I think it was his little Gretchen. How many models?
How do you not know Makari?
Huh?
How do you not remember Makari? It's one of the few things that, has not changed in a long time.
The model or the name?
The name. And that, and that Grazgold always has a little boy. A little buddy.
I believe there was just a question of whether it counted as one model or two, because you have both of them. So, in terms of the transports, they just corrected that. They had one FAQ that regarded the conniving runs stratagem, or two FAQs, and that was the one. I'm trying to read it right now. I'm trying to understand the question. When using the stratagem to be able to make the normal move as part of the stratagem, this was what I'm talking about when they were talking about, do they need the 4+ to be able to move? Which is, I guess the wording was just a little weird. So the answer is no. The other one has to do with the go get 'em stratagem about the effects and when you check them. When you check to see if a unit has 10 or more models, and it's checked after the unit has shot. So, because there's an additional effect that depends on how many models are in the unit they're attacking. So that was it. Just those two. There's plenty. Trust me. There's plenty of questions that they didn't answer. So. Oh, GW, don't ever change. So that's that. Last bit of business. If you don't follow the interweb or Facebook or Reddit or anything on the internet, I'm sure your local play group has talked about it. I know ours has. Also this weekend there was the Alamo GT. The TO for the Alamo GT put out a blog on Monday stating essentially that for the TLDR, basically he made a ruling after thinking about it a day later at $1 short. He decides that he made the wrong ruling and punishes the player that asked for the ruling by zeroing out all their games and giving them a retroactive red card and banning them for a minimum of 2 years.
When I heard about this, I literally thought it was a joke. I thought you guys were just fucking around.
It
or
reads
it was
like
some
one.
random Reddit post. Oh my god. I mean, as someone who has to teach people how to write at something approaching a professional level, it's just fucking staggering that people think it's acceptable to like put out prose of that level and pretend like they're know what they're fucking doing. Like it's, in general, I mean, that's really comes down to of, you know, I remember when we first started getting into judging and this kind of concept of like a more professional, you know, judge kind of came to be, that, you know, the usual bad actors would often take umbrage of like, well, who are these judges, or these judges are biased, they're unfair, you know, like, you know, and there was a lot of aspersions kind of placed about judges and TOs of like, well, they have, you know, they don't like me, or yada yada yada, they make bad decisions. And it was almost always a way for, again, bad actors to kind of skirt responsibility for their actions and when they would be punished. And this, I think, is a great example of a time where, like, this is just a judge who absolutely made a terrible decision and is actively being a bad judge in TO, right? Like, this is this is one of those, like, hey, guys, don't do what Donnie Don't does, right? Like, it's... I mean, it's just absolutely a case study in how to completely lose any concept of integrity, of professionalism, and of knowledge of the game, right? Like, you're a judge, you're going to blow calls. God knows I have to, right? Like, and when I find that out, I apologize. I see if I can in any way, without affecting game state, fix the damage I may have inadvertently caused, right? Like, it happens. And so you make a call at the table. We as judges always expect players to kind of accept that, of like, you call a judge over, the judge makes the decision, you accept what the judge says, and you move on with the game, right? Like, and if you have an issue with it, you can kindly and calmly talk about it later, and we can hash it out.
That happens all the time.
But when you're a judge, you also have to abide by that of, if you make a call at the table, that's what the call is, man. And you definitely cannot go back a day later and impose the, you know, competitive 40k equivalent of the death penalty of being like, I'm banning you from my events and I'm red carding you and I'm zeroing out your scores just retroactively because you realize you made a bad call. And I get that he is the person responsible is trying to paint this as if he was somehow misinformed,
right?
When I think it's very clear he wasn't misinformed. He just wasn't really aware of the rules interaction that he was really dealing with, and B, realized that he had made a mistake and was just needed to blame someone because he made a mistake, and he's just, God forbid you be able to publicly accept you've made a mistake, because I'm not going to speculate on anyone's mental health or things like that, but that just sounds like really tiny dick syndrome right there, of like, you can't even admit you made a mistake, right? Like, it's just, as someone who judges and takes pride whenever I judge, and I don't get to judge as much as Adam does, right? But I always take pride in any event, whether it's, you know, kind of the friends and family feel of SoCal, or, you know, running, again, the largest competitive event in the world, essentially, at LVO, of like, we have to be professional. We have not asked judges back at LVO or removed judges from LVO because they don't act professionally enough by our standards, right? And then you got this asshole coming in, and all he's done, besides screwing over, you know, this dude who seems like he deserved this punishment at all, not only is that guy being screwed, he's actually actively damaging the reputation of other judges and TOs, because people are going to say, like, well, look, this judge was fucked up, and so that's why you shouldn't always have to listen to the judge, right? It just gives those bad actors more, you know, ammunition of like, oh yeah, here's a clear case of where there was clearly a very unqualified and person being a, you know, head judge in TO, and you know, it's infuriating. It's like, how do you fuck up this badly, man? Like, you have to choose to fuck up this badly. Like, deliberate choices were made. Choices were made.
It feels like, have you ever seen that meme with the two buttons and then the guy's sweating because he doesn't know what to pick? It feels like the two buttons for this guy were, admit you made a mistake and it'll go away in a week, or make even more mistakes and now you're going to be remembered forever for the wrong reason. And he was like, oh, I don't know, which one should I pick? Oh, I'm gonna pick that one. Like, that was stupid.
So for me, there's two parts. As Danny said, I'm probably the most, outside of a few maybe of the like WTC judges, because I know some of them do it as much as I do, if not more. I think there's two parts to it. One is admitting the mistake. So yeah, it happens. I made mistakes over this past weekend, and I changed it or just explained my rationale and told them, well, we'll look into it more. And if we want to change it, I'll post it in the FLG FAQ, just to make sure it's clear to everybody, including myself. I think that's part of it. To me, it's not a big deal. To me personally, it's not a big deal if I make a mistake and I'm able to correct it. I think the bigger issue, as Danny mentioned, is the fact, and the other part, really the two parts, is the mistake and publicizing it. The other part is whether he made a mistake or not. The other part of it is doling out the punishment, so whether warranted or not. I always find it odd when people, maybe people, not an organization. Organizations put out statements all the time. Frontline put out a statement. There was one where they banned a player in Canada. The organization put out a statement, not the individual judge. So, because I think part of it also, it's the one judge. He's also the judge and the TO. It's his event. And so even if he puts it out as the organization, it's just him. So if I put out a statement for Hammer Wrath, for instance, everyone knows it's me, because I'm the only one that does all the stuff for it, the TO and the judging. So I think the
wow, that was a little judgy. I get it. It's a little judgy.
I'm just stating. I'm just spitting facts over here.
Let him cook.
So I think the big misstep is putting it out there publicly, and I think part of the reason why some people do it is because they want people to know. Look at me, look what I did, look how great I am. He's not the first one to do it, and he probably won't be the last one to talk about, like, hey, look what I did. So I think that exacerbated the problem, because in putting up his reasons, I use quotes because the reasons are somewhat sketchy. He put down, I think he put down that the player had a past history, which is questionable. I think from what I understand, from what I've read or heard, the past history is one yellow card at one event. It's not like other bad actors that everyone knows or remembers, where it was multiple events, where there was a paper trail. Whereas like, oh, you've been shitty for like 3 events, so you got to go.
I mean, also, let's be real. The person in question here, how many yellows do they have? The TO organizer, right? Like, this is also not a person that is known to always give you a completely stand-up fun time at the table.
I was going to go get into that, but...
What? I mean, hell, I'm just going to say, I think it's also important of, like, hey...
Play how you judge.
People, like... Froze, can you guys still hear me?
You're breaking up.
Yeah, my computer froze for a second.
Now you're fine.
Yeah. What I was going to say is, like, you should know who is running your events, right? Like, not just like, oh, I'm going to go to this event, but, like, especially if you're going to a larger event or something like that, you should actually bother to look up who the TO is, who the judges are, and, think about that as well, because, anyone can claim to be a TO, but you have to kind of know about folk, I think, to a certain extent, especially because there's so many now.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many events that I think it's important for players to be a little judicious about where they choose to spend their time and money on, just because, like, it's not hard to just do a little bit of digging. But yeah, anyway, like.
Yeah. So I feel like if he had just done it behind the scenes, it would have been, and I disagree with the red card. It's a yellow at least. At most, it's maybe a yellow, but not a red card, not a bannable offense, especially because the offense in question is kind of iffy to begin with. And the player was just following what the judge told him. So I don't know how you
I
can
mean, that's the
punish
biggest
someone.
thing. Like, you can't punish a player for following your ruling at the table.
Right.
Right? Like, that just doesn't make any fucking sense. Again, you can punish a player for actively ignoring a ruling. You can punish a player who is, willfully misrepresenting what the ruling was to his opponent.
Right.
Right? Or, things like that. But if I come up to someone, I was like, oh, hey, man, Angron revives on a 3-up. He's like, I thought it was like triple sixes. No, it's any triple. And the guy
Hilarious.
revives Angron and wins, right? Wins an important game because of that. I can't red card the dude for cheating, for using the wrong rules for Angron, because I told him what to do.
Right.
Right? Like, that's just, in no world is that logical.
Right.
And again, there's no reason to go super public about this, especially since, according to the player who was impacted, he was not contacted by this. There was no discussion of like, hey man, let's talk about what happened. Hey, this is something that's going to happen to you, right? Like, there's none of that. It's just a flat out like, oh, hey, here you go.
Yeah.
And it's just mind-bogglingly stupid.
Well, the other thing for me is that what it does, it shows people like it makes people less likely to call a judge if they're afraid that they might get in trouble afterwards.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd be terrified of calling that guy over to make a call
Well, there's that, but in general, if someone hears about that or they hear about, oh yeah, you don't want to go to tournaments, the judges change their mind all the time, and then they punish you for it. So it's something like that when you're trying to get people to go to events or get people, like we've been trying for the last few years, just get people to call a judge. And this sometimes sets it back. And it's like, do I call a judge and maybe get in trouble with doing what he tells me? Or will I get a retro red card?
I know.
In all honesty, it probably won't happen. But
I don't know, man. Like, the internet is like, being on hobby social media can sometimes be very depressing, because at least once a week there is some post, whether it's on Reddit, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on a Facebook group, of like, hey, I want to go to a tournament, and people being like, oh my god, tournament players are all XYZ, or it's all unpainted cardboard terrain, right? All the armies are gray plastic, and all these like, so there's always some complaint about the competitive scene by people who don't participate in it at all, have no concept of what it is. But when you have something like this becomes the kernel of truth that turns into this massive, like, just kind of urban legend that becomes this rallying point of like, oh, well, why'd you go? A judge is just going to punish you afterwards if you do what you say,
if you play the rules wrong.
Yeah, like, there's a lot of people, and especially now with like Space Marine 2 coming and Mechanicus, and like there's going to be more mainline big eye stuff for the games, for Games Workshop, which means we're going to get new players. We're going to get people who's like, oh my god, I play Space Marine 2, I'm little Timmy, I'm 13, I play Space Marine 2, and this is the greatest fucking game ever, and now I want to do this on the tabletop. And then they're going to go online, because that's what they do.
Yeah.
And shit like this happens by especially people, again, who have, usually have agendas for why they blow things out of proportion, right? Because they're trying to, maybe they're a more painting or narrative focused person, so they just want to shit on competitive, or maybe it's another competitive player who's just trying to shit on a competitive event's not in their area or not part of their clique, right? Like, it's just, like, it's that, what is the Happy Gilmore thing? Like, that was the worst answer I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, yeah.
I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul. I
feel dumber for having listened to it.
Listen to it, yeah. I mean, seriously, sincerely, all I can say to the TO in question is, like, get therapy, bro. This was not a healthy move, right? Like, is this a cry for help? Because how else are you this fucking stupid? Like, it's that simple. Like,
yeah. Well,
like, you can't punish someone for doing what you told them to do.
Whether you were right or wrong in your ruling, yes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Bro just wants to be a commissar IRL.
Well, in any case, my concern was more of the optics of, like, don't call a judge, because then you'll just get red carded afterwards. more than anything else. That was my big takeaway from it. So
yeah, again, this is not affecting anybody I really know. Like, it's not like I have any kinfolk. I am completely incensed purely because I'm like, great, all the work that all of us have done, and many other people who are TOs and judges and do this not because we make money, but because we love it, we love the community, and we love the game, right? Like, have actively worked to get people more comfortable with the idea of call judges. It's not an attack, right? This is just how games work. Sometimes you need a neutral third party. All of this work to deprogram the idea that judges are bad or judges are there to hurt you is like, oh, cool. Thanks for setting us back, asshole. Like, because that's what this is. Like, this actively sets us back. And it's just like, come on, man.
All right. Calm down, Danny. Deep breaths. Deep breath.
I could handle you the first 20 minutes of that rant.
Come on, that was like that was like a lean 15.
That's type 15.
On a happy note, what are we working on? I'm still working on my list for Champs Cup.
I'm doing mostly the same.
The only models I have, there's only 2 boxes of models I need to buy, and then I think I'm all set in terms of the army list I want. All right, the army list I need to practice with and see if I want to run it. So.
Yeah, I've played 3 games with one version of a list I'm thinking of taking,
and
which is I'm 1 and 2, but all of the one game I won pretty handily, and then both games I only lost by like 8 points. So like in the different,
like a small loss or draw.
Yeah. So like as a again defender army, I was relatively happy with the results.
Yeah.
And one of the games, like, I was honestly really tired, and if dice had gone my way, I probably actually could have turned it into a pure draw or a win or a small win for me. But I didn't want to keep playing, like, because the game was like 2 hours long, and we're like we're at like the end of turn 3, and there's still plenty of moves on the table. It's not like, oh, there's only a few things left. Like, it's like, no, our turns will take time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that at
really
BAO.
like it. Yeah.
A lot of we're on turn 3.
Ugh.
All right, guys.
I like the list for what it does. I have, after talking with Jeff for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
I have a slightly different version that isn't Invasion or isn't Vanguard and is Invasion Fleet, and actually using a Norn. Emissary.
Okay. I didn't expect to hear that.
Jeff and I were talking, like, the Norns are really good for basically making your opponent really have to scrum for a center objective for 2 turns.
Okay.
Because, like, you throw a Norn on there, they're T11, they're got the 4++, they're OC15 on that objective with a 5+ feel no pain. Like, most armies are not going to be able to kill that in a turn. So you got 2 turns essentially of scrumming over this objective while you can focus on other ones, right? So it becomes a super distraction card effects.
Okay.
So it's an idea.
Yeah. I don't mind putting my list out there because I don't care in terms of team turn, because it's not like we're going to win or anything. The list I have is it's using the Deceptors detachment, for those that don't know. That's the one that lets you infiltrate like 100 guys in the army. Wait, is that the one? Yeah, that's the one. It's the Vehicle Explodes list, which is what I call it. And that one is basically 2 Chaos Lords, 2 Dark Communes, and a Sorcerer and Terminator armor. And then 2 units of 20, 1 unit of 10 Cultists, 2 units of 10 Legionnaires. Is it 2 or 3? No, it's 3. 3 units of 10. 3 Chaos Predators, Havocs, 2 Venom Crawlers, and a Warp Talon. 5-man Warp Talon.
Nice. So,
it's really simple. Especially if my opponent has no infiltrators.
Right.
It's a cultist jail, but I don't know. It wouldn't stand up to any assault army, so. Well, maybe. It depends. It's basically, and then with the whatchamacallit, the Chaos Lord that has the enhancement where you can hide with one of the Legionnaire squads. That's pretty cool. Then the sorcerer, if you give him the basically the enhancement that gives him lone op and shroud.
Right.
So you just drop him somewhere and he can just farm whatever, like behind enemy lines, or what's the other one?
Deploy teleport.
Deploy teleport, homos, things like that. So
yeah,
we'll see how it goes.
Part of the problem with trying to build lists is right now too is knowing that in a couple of months we'll have a whole new secondaries.
Yeah, and I think missions. The secondaries might be like right before, like a month before the event.
So that's a little bit of a wrinkle, but we'll get there.
Yeah, it's fine.
If the core elements of gameplay are still there and the core overall strategies, I could see a couple tweaks, but I don't see it being that dramatic.
Well, Battleline, because Battleline is going to become more relevant for a couple of the secondaries, and a couple of the secret missions.
Right. Yeah.
Then I have 6 units of Battleline, so.
Yeah, I mean that's something I've been thinking about. One of the reasons I may switch from the Vanguard list is because that has like no battle line, and the invasion fleet has at least gargoyles. So I've at least got if I know I'm in like I'm in some situation where I'm really gonna need battle line. At least I have some of them. Maybe some Hormagaunts too.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I think that's it for tonight. You got to get back to spreading democracy. So, Tom.
Super bugged mission.
Tom, any last words before we close out?
One more reason I'm excited for Mechanicus 2.
Oh my god.
Is it looks like in this edition, in this game, the campaign mode can be played as either Mechanicus or Necrons.
I'm just gonna cut that part out.
No, you're not, because you're too lazy.
There is that, yes. But will I? It's at the end. It's easy to cut out. Just a quick snip. Like my circumcision. Quick snip. I was going to say, I don't know, because I wasn't there, but I actually was there. I just don't remember. Danny, any words of wisdom?
Play games, be nice to each other.
Especially that second part. Jesus.
Yeah, right? Like,
well, thank you, everybody, for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to sign up for the Patreon. Usually with the Patreon, we give... I usually upload the video before it goes out to the general public, or at least the podcast version. So, but again, I'll be, let's see, what's 2 weeks? We may have to delay the next episode only because ACO is in 2 weeks. So
better to have the episode after.
So we'll have that episode after. I'll most likely put out an ACO episode just to go over the basics for it for those that are attending or those that are just interested in how it's going, especially with the new fixed terrain and especially with the new format, because the new format, we're just playing 8 rounds. No bracket, no top cut. Everybody is playing 8 rounds no matter what. No top cut because it's a pain in the ass, especially when there's a bunch of draws and we happen to have one winner already. Right. And then no brackets because I feel that format sucks, because if you do well on going forward, like if you, let's say you drop 1 or 2 and so you don't make the top bracket, if you happen to go undefeated the rest of the weekend, you don't get to make it go higher than whatever your bracket is, which kind of sucks.
Right.
So if we just play 8 rounds, you can go as high as you can get. It's a lot more rewarding in my opinion than just win your bracket or whatever. But anyway, I just gave everybody the gist of what the changes are. So I'll still make a video probably next week, or right before ACO, and then our next full episode will be after ACO to talk about it. But until then, good night, everybody, and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Later.
Bye-bye.